What's on the ballot in your state? We are not just voting for the president. There are also many amendments and propositions that you may be voting on depending on where you live. So we are going to go through the major propositions, amendments, and initiatives on state ballots this election. And we're going to give you a concise summary of these amendments and how I would vote on each of them. And then we are going to talk to the great Glenn Beck about his new book, Propaganda Wars, but he is also going to tell us his predictions about this election, how he is feeling about things, and his perspective on the spiritual, eternal reality of our political season. This episode is brought to you by Crowd Health. Go to joincrowdhealth.com/Allie. That's joincrowdhealth.com/Allie. Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Thursday. Hope everyone has had a wonderful week so far. All right, I want to do something important with the top of our show today. I want to go through some of the amendments and measures that you guys in various states will be voting on. We can't do every single one, and I can't give you a thorough explanation on every single amendment, but I will give you a concise explanation on these amendments and measures and tell you how I would vote on them. It's really important that people are aware of this because the language on the ballot is confusing. The language in the media is even more confusing, especially if it's an issue like abortion. They will try to tell you that this amendment, it's just making sure that women can get miscarriage care. It's just making sure that your D&C after your miscarriage is fully legal. It gives doctors clarity. They will tell you all kinds of lies, but whenever you see something like that and you see Planned Parenthood and other abortion activists propping it up or celebrating it, trying to persuade you on it, understand it always means abortion through 9 months for any reason. They might be telling you part of the truth, that it is also covering, emergencies for women or something like that, but they're not telling you the full truth. And so you need to understand that. You need to do your own digging. There are very many conservative organizations that have been out there trying to inform voters on the truth of these things. If you ever want to get the conservative or pro-life perspective on something, you have to go look for it. You never have to go look for the progressive or the mainstream take on things. That's ubiquitous. That's always going to be out there. You have to look for the other side of the story, which is part of the reason why it is tough to be a conservative and why most people default to progressive, because you do not have to think, you do not have to try, you do not have to sacrifice to be progressive, because that's the popular mainstream position. You'll be celebrated for not thinking and just repeating their mantras that don't make any sense, like love is love. That is also why I wrote the book, Toxic Empathy, and we go through those 5 catchy mantras that abortion is healthcare, trans women are women, love is love, no human is illegal, social justice is justice. You'll notice that all of these are propagandistic in that they are circular phrases that are basically meaningless because none of the terms are ever specifically defined. Love is love, but what is love? Trans women are women, but what is a woman? Abortion is healthcare, but what is healthcare? No human is illegal, but what does it mean to be illegal? Social justice is justice, but what is justice? They never actually define those terms, and that is a sign of really good and effective propaganda because they're so nonsensical that your brain doesn't even know how to break it down. Your brain doesn't even know how to refute what they're saying. Love is love sounds really good until you ask, but what is love and who says? Is predation love? Is stalking love? Is lust love? If not, why not? Who gets to say? And of course, that really is the point of my book, Toxic Empathy. Who gets to say what is true and who says? And as Christians, we know that it's God. That because, as Genesis 1:1 says, he created all things, he is the authority over all of them. He is the definer of all things. He tells us in the very first chapter of the first book of the Bible, the definition of male and female, the definition of marriage, and the definition of the value of human life, that we are made in God's image. That's all in Genesis 1:27. And so much of these cultural, political questions that we are dealing with today are really a question about the created order. These are fundamentally theological questions that we are dealing with, and Christians must have an answer for them. Not only biblical answers, we can have our scientific, historic, and logical answers because all truth is God's truth. But we must also know what the Bible has to say about these things. And that is what toxic empathy is. We go through all of those lies. We look at what the emotional manipulation of toxic empathy actually looks like in the media and in pop culture. And then we look at the other stories on the other side of the issue. And then we say, but what is true? If there are people on both sides of every issue that demand our compassion, what is actually true? What is factually true? And most importantly, for the Christian, what is theologically true? So if you have not gotten toxic empathy yet, I encourage you to go out and get it. So many of you have just encouraged me by telling me that it has changed the game for how you have had conversations with those on the fence. And that is exactly why I wanted to put it out before this election, because this election really matters. Some people are saying, oh, this is a political book and it's not a Christian book. It's a political book for Christians. And people are mad about that who don't understand why politics matter, that politics has become theological. It's not that our theology has become political. Politics matter because policy matters, because people matter. Politics affects policy. Policy affects people. People matter to God. Therefore, they matter to us. That's why I wrote this book, because Christians choose the truth in love over toxic empathy, because toxic empathy leads us to making really bad and stupid and evil decisions that actually harm the very people that we think we are trying to help. So these amendments that are on the ballot, they are impactful measures that will have an effect on babies in the womb, that will have an effect on children, and how we vote on them matters. Do not vote just the top of the ticket. Vote all the way down. I say, my opinion is that you should vote Republican all the way down. But make sure you know whether to vote yes or no on these amendments. So we'll go through some of the major ones, the categories that they fall into, the states that they are on the ballot for in just a second. Let me go ahead and pause and tell you about our first sponsor for the day, and that is Every Life. Every Life is a pro-life diaper company. They're incredible in what they do for babies and their moms. If you buy a Buy for a Cause bundle on their website, that supplies free resources, tools, baby, mommy items to pregnant women who are choosing life. And they also, how Every Life supports their employees who are pregnant or who are adopting. It's really just amazing. And of course, you never have to worry about them donating your hard-earned dollars towards pro-abortion politicians or giving that money to pro-abortion organizations. And unfortunately, many of the big diaper brands are doing just that. But you also don't have to compromise on the quality of these diapers. We use Every Life diapers in our home. They work really well. I never have to worry about leaks or anything like that. So it's just a win all around. Go to everylife.com, use code Allie10 for 10% off. That's everylife.com, code Allie10. All right, so most of these propositions fall into these categories: abortion, marriage and family, border and election integrity, crime, marijuana, and school choice. So on abortion, 10 states are voting on abortion-related ballot measures. All of them seek to amend their state constitutions or Bill of Rights to include the right to abortion. 2 states are voting to remove same-sex marriage bans from their state law, despite SCOTUS's Obergefell decision already effectively doing this in 2015. It's kind of superfluous, but they want to also create a constitutional amendment that allows for same-sex marriage, and a better way to say that would be to redefine the natural and historic and biblical definition of marriage. On border and election integrity, 8 state legislatures referred constitutional amendments to the ballot to prohibit the state or local governments from allowing non-citizens to vote. On crime, voters in 3 states, Arizona, California, and Colorado, will decide on ballot measures that would make their states tougher on crime. For marijuana, 4 states are trying to legalize recreational marijuana use. On school choice, 2 states are voting to provide school choice programs, while 1 is voting to overturn a bill that provides public grants for students to attend private schools. Okay, let's do this in alphabetical order. First up is Arizona, Proposition 139. This is an amendment that establishes the fundamental right to abortion and establishes that the state of Arizona may not interfere with abortion attempts before the point of fetal viability. That's a very subjective term, by the way, so it's already problematic, but it's generally about 24 weeks gestation. That's well into the second trimester, well after that baby can feel pain, well after that mother is able to feel kicks. And so that is a radical position. All abortion is radical because it's always murder. But well into the second trimester, that is a radical position. So Arizona may not interfere with abortion attempts before the point of fetal viability. After that, this amendment says they will be able to intervene unless the life or health of the pregnant woman is at risk. And here's where you have to read in between the lines, and here's where you have to know and familiarize yourself with this language. When an amendment like this refers to life or health, they are referring to the definition that is outlined in a Supreme Court decision called Doe v. Bolton. Doe v. Bolton defined life or health of the mother, not as the physical life of the mother, but also including things like mental and emotional health, the relational health that she has in her life, and even her financial situation. And so that means that this amendment would allow abortion for virtually any reason through all 9 months. That is what Proposition 139 is. And let me just read, I think it's so interesting that this is Proposition 139. How demonic is this? Most of you are familiar with this passage in Psalm 139, and this is what it reads. Verse 13, for you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. How darkly, sardonically ironic is it? Satanically ironic is it that this is Amendment 139, allowing abortion through all 9 months? And you know, it was pointed out to me by Maddie Pruitt Trout. I actually recorded an interview with her that's going to be out on Monday for her podcast. And I had never thought about this word unformed. You know, the first time I got an ultrasound was about 8 weeks gestation with my first, and she looked like a little jelly bean. I saw the beating heart, but she didn't look like a baby yet. And yet there she was with all of her DNA, fully a human, fully alive, and yet she was unformed. And so these verses are saying that God sees even our unformed substance inside the womb. And even at that time in his book were written every single one of our days before any of them came to be. That is the sanctity, the dignity of life inside the womb, that ensouled image bearer from the point of conception onward. And so I think it should be pretty obvious that every Christian, every person should vote no on Proposition 139 in the state of Arizona. Then there's Proposition 313, that this would require that anyone convicted of child sex trafficking must receive a sentence of life imprisonment. You should vote yes on that. Now, I would love for it to be the death penalty, but if I have to settle for something, life in prison is fine. Proposition 314 would allow police to arrest non-citizens who enter Arizona from foreign countries at locations other than official ports and allowing state judges to order deportations. Vote yes on that. In California, we've got Prop 3. This is the right to marry and repeal Proposition 8 amendment. So in 2008, California voters passed Prop 8. Isn't that amazing? This is less than 20 years ago, which defined marriage as a union between one man and one woman. In California, 16 years ago, they passed Prop 8 defining marriage, solidifying the definition of marriage. Prop 8 was then invalidated by SCOTUS's Obergefell decision in 2015. Whew, the sexual revolution is fast, y'all. Proposition 3 would repeal Prop 8 altogether, declare that a right to marry is a fundamental right in the California Constitution. So it's just a language change, basically. Vote no. Proposition 36 in California, drug and theft crime penalties and treatment mandated felonies initiative. So this would increase penalties for certain drug crimes by increasing sentence lengths and level of crime, adds fentanyl to the list of drugs that warrants a felony charge, increases illegal drug sentences based on the quantity of drugs sold illegally, makes theft and shoplifting, including when the goods are valued at less than $950, felonies when the person has 2 or more prior theft-related convictions. So this is like still so soft, but it's considered hard on crime for California. So vote yes on that. In San Francisco, Proposition O declares that San Francisco shall not investigate or prosecute a person for having accessed or provided reproductive health care, so an abortion. You want to vote no on that. So that would make San Francisco basically a sanctuary for abortion. So definitely vote no if you are one of those rare conservatives living in that area. All right, we'll get into the rest of this in just a second. Let me pause and tell you about our next sponsor, and that is My Patriot Supply. We don't know which direction our country is going, but it is better to be safe than sorry when it comes to your food. You want to get a 3-month emergency food supply kit from My Patriot Supply. It's good in storage for up to 25 years. Hopefully you'll never need it, but if you do, you'll be glad that you have it. Get your 3-month emergency food kit for every member of your family. If you go to preparewithallie.com, you'll get a very hefty discount on that emergency food kit. Go to preparewithallie.com. In Colorado, Amendment 79 provides a right to abortion in the state constitution, prohibiting the state or local governments from denying someone's right to an abortion. It's one of 10 states that does not restrict abortion after a specific point in pregnancy at all. It doesn't even do the euphemisms like life and health of the mother. You can simply have an abortion through all 40 weeks. We know that according to The Atlantic and The New Yorker, which highlighted a doctor named Warren Hearn, that those abortions are happening. He does abortions even through 36 weeks. And he said that the vast majority of women who come in for those third trimester abortions do not have any kind of medical diagnosis. Of course not, because if you had a medical diagnosis in the third trimester, you would deliver your baby. There would be no reason to kill your baby before you deliver. An abortion is much more involved at that point in pregnancy than birth would be. So vote no on Amendment 79 in the state of Colorado. Amendment J, which would remove the constitutional same-sex marriage ban. It would make sure that in the state constitution, same-sex marriage is a so-called right. You want to vote no as a Christian on that. Then you've got Amendment 1. It would remove the right to bail in cases of first-degree murder when the proof is evident or the presumption is great. You want to vote yes on that. Proposition 128 would require that persons convicted of certain certain violent crimes serve more of their sentences before being eligible for parole. Vote yes on that. Amendment 80 adds a new section to the Colorado Constitution stating that each K through 12 child has the right to school choice. The ballot initiative would also provide that parents have the right to direct the education of their children. You want to vote yes on that. Then we've got Florida, Amendment 4. We've talked about Amendment 4 before. Ron DeSantis is doing an excellent job of traveling across his state, making sure that people are informed on what Amendment 4 really means, because there's a lot of propaganda. It would legalize abortion before fetal viability, or, again, this is the same thing as with Arizona, or when necessary, quote unquote, to protect the health of the mother. There's that Doe v. Bolton word, as determined by a healthcare professional. So any healthcare professional, not even a doctor, could say to a 9-month pregnant woman, yeah, sure, this is important for your health to have this abortion. That could just mean that you'll be happier if you have this abortion. And again, those abortions are happening as documented by the Guttmacher Institute even, which is the Planned Parenthood research arm that happens at least thousands of times a year. So this amendment would allow abortion through all 9 months for any reason and would disallow the state from restricting abortion. So it would get rid of the heartbeat bill that was passed in Florida. So you want to vote no on Amendment 4. Do not be duped by the toxic empathy that tells you that this somehow protects women's health care, or this somehow protects women's rights or miscarriage care. You will still be able to get the DNC that you need if you have a miscarriage, if your baby naturally, tragically dies under pro-life laws in Florida or any state in the United States. If you are not able to receive that, it is not the fault of the pro-life law. It is medical malpractice. It is the fault of the propagandists that are spreading disinformation about what these pro-life laws really mean. Ron DeSantis has said that radical out-of-state activist groups, including those funded by George Soros, have poured tens of millions of dollars into Florida to push Amendment 4. They are a culture of death. Democrats are a party of death, unapologetically. That's why they had abortion mobiles outside of the DNC. It is not safe, legal, and rare to them. It is not about miscarriage. It's not about fetal anomalies. It's not about babies who are conceived in rape. It's not about women's health care. It is about being able to kill babies through all 9 months and then leaving babies who survive abortions to die. That is why Kamala Harris voted against the Born Alive Infant Survivors Protection Act in 2019. That is why in 2023, Tim Walz got rid of the reporting requirement that was existent in state law in the state of Minnesota, that required hospitals to report when a baby survived an abortion. Because that law previously existed, we know that there have been at least 8 babies in the state of Minnesota before 2023, but while Tim Walz has been governor, who have died after birth because of neglect after they survived an abortion. Okay, this is who the Democrats are. Ralph Northam let the cat out of the bag a few years ago when he was governor of Virginia, when he said exactly what happens when a baby survives abortion. You put him off to the side. Jill Stanek, the nurse that gave her congressional testimony a few years ago, talked about finding a little baby who was aborted at 23 weeks gestation because he had Down syndrome, who was struggling to breathe in a utility closet because that's where he was placed after he was aborted. That is abortion. Unless you believe in infanticide, you should not vote Democrat. Unless you believe in infanticide, you should not vote yes on Amendment 4 in Florida. Thank you, Tony Dungy, by the way, who has been so outspoken against Amendment 4 in Florida. I really appreciate that. Then we've got Amendment 3. This is another big one in Florida. Here's the best explanation of Amendment 3, and this comes from Casey DeSantis on X. She says this, even though it makes it seem like, oh, it's just making weed possession legal. It's more freedom. Here's the reality of the confusing language of Amendment 3 and why you need to vote no on it. She says Amendment 3 creates a permanent constitutional right to possess over 100 joints at a time and smoke anywhere in Florida, even public places where it could more easily fall into the hands of children. What's more, it creates a monopoly and blanket legal immunity for big weed corporations who spent $60 million plus to write and get Amendment 3 on the ballot. This is not the marijuana amendment, it's the monopoly amendment. So vote no on 3. So not only is it going to create this degenerate, horrible smelling culture in the state of Florida where you can't even eat outside or play at a park with your kids without smelling the awful stench of marijuana, but also it doesn't help those so-called small business owners that are operating some hole-in-the-wall weed shop. Not that I care about them, but that's not what this is about. This is about the big weed companies wanting to make as much money as possible. All right, then we've got Hawaii. Hawaii has an amendment that is called, I guess, the Remove Legislature Authority to Limit Marriage to Opposite Sex Couples amendment. Seems wordy. I feel like there's probably another name for it. It would remove provision reserving marriage for heterosexual couples in the state's constitution. Again, even though same-sex so-called marriage is already legal because of Obergefell, but you should vote no on that anyway. In Idaho, there is a constitutional amendment, HJR 5, the Citizenship Requirement for Voting Amendment. It amends the Idaho Constitution to require a person to be a U.S. citizen in order to vote in elections in Idaho. Vote yes on that. And then Amendment 1 in Iowa, to require citizenship to vote in elections and allow 17-year-olds to vote in primaries amendment. It prohibits local governments from allowing non-citizens to vote. It would also allow 17-year-olds who will be 18 by the general election to vote in the primaries. I would vote yes on that. And then we've got Kentucky Constitutional Amendment 1, the Citizenship Requirement for Voting Amendment. Vote yes on that. We've got Amendment 2 in Kentucky, allows state funding for non-public education amendment. It would provide that the Kentucky General Assembly can provide financial support for the education of students outside the system of common schools. So this is just a school choice amendment. I would vote yes on that. Maryland, question 1, right to reproductive freedom amendment. This is another one of those, enshrining the so-called right to abortion through all 9 months. Vote no on that. Massachusetts, question 4, the legalization and regulation of psychedelic substances initiative. Vote no on that. Missouri, Amendment 3, right to reproductive freedom initiative. Vote no on that. Amendment 7, the require citizenship to vote and prohibit ranked choice voting amendment. Vote yes on that. Montana, CI 128, right to abortion initiative. Vote no on that. Nebraska, we've got 2 competing initiatives, 434 and 439. So whichever gets the most vote wins. And even though I don't really like the choices on the table here because they're not the pro-life one isn't pro-life enough, if one of them is going to win, we have to vote for the more pro-life one. So Initiative 434 would prohibit abortions after the first trimester, except for in some cases. We should vote yes on that because Initiative 439 would establish a fundamental right to abortion through all 9 months. Vote no on that. It's got that same language, until viability. But after that, for the health or life of the mother, we've already explained why that is so deceptive. Nebraska Medical Marijuana Regulation Initiative. This is similar to the Florida amendment. I would vote no on that. Then we've got Nevada. Question 6 provides for a fundamental right to abortion. Vote no on that. North Carolina, citizenship requirement for voting amendment. Vote yes on that. North Dakota initiated Measure 5. Legalizes recreational marijuana, yada, yada. Vote no on that. Oklahoma, State Question 834, the Oklahoma Citizenship Requirement for Voting Amendment. Vote yes on that. South Carolina, Citizenship Requirement for Voting Amendment. Are we getting that people care about protecting our sovereignty and citizenship? You should vote yes on that. South Dakota, Constitutional Amendment G, right to abortion initiative, vote no on that. South Dakota initiated Measure 29 about recreational marijuana use, vote no on that. Texas, if you're in Amarillo, Texas, Prop A prohibits residents from receiving abortions outside of Amarillo and prohibits people from transporting residents to locations outside Amarillo to receive abortions and establish Amarillo as a sanctuary city for the unborn. You want to vote yes on that. Wisconsin, citizenship voting requirement amendment amends the Wisconsin Constitution to add language to provide that only a United States citizen age 18 or older who is a resident may vote. Vote yes on that. All right, that's what we got. Those are the major initiatives. That's how I would vote on all of them. Make sure your friends listen to that segment. Make sure they know what is really at stake. There's so much propaganda, as we're about to talk about with Glenn Beck. And we, as people who follow the Jesus, who is the big L logos, the word made flesh, the one who embodies all things that are good, right, and true. We must be ambassadors of what is true, and of course, ambassadors of what is life affirming. And so how we vote on these things really matter. All right, before I get into that conversation with Glenn, let me tell you about our next sponsor for the day, and that is American Christian Credit Union. We don't want to have to worry about debanking. Unfortunately, when you partner with a secular progressive institution, that is a risk that they will no longer want to work with you because of your beliefs, what you stand for. Well, America's Christian Credit Union was begun by pastors who wanted to serve their congregants, but now they've grown. They want to work with godly people like you, and they have branches across the country, 30,000 ATMs nationwide. For a limited time, you can earn $400 when you open a new checking account with qualifying activities. Plus, my listeners get an additional $100 bonus with the promo code Allie at checkout. Go to americaschristiancu.com/Allie. America's Christian Credit Union is federally insured by the NCUA. Glenn Beck, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks
so
much. You? I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great.
You're feeling good?
I am. I mean, yeah, I am. I think that politically speaking, the left is in meltdown.
Yeah.
Kamala just gave a speech where she said that it's been confirmed now that Donald Trump said when he was in office that he won't answer to the Constitution. He wants Hitler-like. I mean, just horrible.
Yes.
That's going to get the man killed.
Right.
You know?
She just came out to just say that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
along with the official...
Mark Kelly said that, she says.
Yeah. And if you believe that, you're a moron. Why would they be holding something like that until this point when their numbers are starting to fall apart?
Yeah.
This is becoming very, very dangerous. I was just talking to Charlie Kirk a minute ago, and I said, he said, I'm worried about the president's safety. And I said, you know, the head of my security is, you know, was the head of, I don't remember if it was foreign, but the other guy, number 2 on my security, was the head of domestic of one of the richest men in the world. And we were with the president recently, and he said, I have a really bad feeling. He's not going to make it to January 20th. And that's a possibility. We have to pray for this man. They kill him. Anybody kills him.
Right.
And it puts our country in a very dangerous place.
I mean, the fact that it is as close as it is.
I'm not sure it is.
You don't think? What do you think?
I could be wrong. I mean, and this is without cheating, so I don't know what the cheating situation is going to be. But I think this time there's a lot of hidden anti-Kamala votes of people that should have voted for the Democrat, would like to vote for the Democrat, but just can't do it for some reason or another and won't, on top of people who will say they're voting for Kamala but would rather have the policies of Trump, and when the curtain is closed behind him, they'll pull the lever for Trump. I think there's a chance of that.
How long do you think the aftermath is going to be?
Depends on what happens. If it's a landslide, and we don't have an assassination, I think we have a chance of holding it together. They're going to try everything that they said about January 6th and what Trump was doing. They're already saying they're going to do that if he's elected. So they're going to try all kinds of stuff. If our side stays calm, we'll be okay. If there is struggle, these people will clamp down, and the far left will make it much, much worse. You don't want anything to happen. I mean, just imagine this. Let's say shoulder fire weapons came across our border. Absolutely plausible, okay? Comes across our border. We know that Iranians are here that are targeting Donald Trump. You put a shoulder fire missile with an Iranian, he shoots the president's plane down. You know, Trump Force One, not Air Force One, which has no missile protection. Yeah. You shoot that down. Do you not think we're at war globally within a week?
Right.
I mean, this thing could go a million different directions.
Yeah.
It's going to take calm, a heart of Christ, and absolute obedience to the gospel.
Yep.
Absolute obedience.
And we have to remember that these people do not have the same moral limitations that you or I do.
Correct.
No matter how much we wanted to win, we would never cheat. We would never do anything illegal or immoral, even if
there are
were
some
legal.
On our side that would.
Yes.
The majority, I am perfectly willing to accept an election that is fair and true and honest. If that's what the country wants, I'll continue to fight against it, but I accept it as the will of my fellow citizens. But once you introduce cheating, then everything becomes way complex.
Yeah. But we can't allow the fear of cheating to keep you from voting, because it's really the only thing that we can do.
Oh, you have a moral obligation to vote, especially if you believe in life.
Right.
I mean, I know Donald Trump, is not as pro-life as a lot of people, including me, would like. However, the other side is a death cult. It is a death cult.
Yep.
You're going to lose your freedom of speech to even speak out for life.
Yeah.
If this happens. I mean, I know that sounds crazy. I just talked to the former Prime Minister, Liz Truss, this morning, and we were talking about how our government and the Labour Party and now the government of Great Britain are colluding to stifle freedom of speech on anything that disagrees with either the government of Great Britain or this administration. That's deadly to a republic.
Well, we already see that right now. The Harris-Biden DOJ has placed pro-lifers in jail.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Trump would pardon those people, at least I think. So if you just want to look at that as an example of the daylight between the two administrations, I'm as pro-life as they come. And yet I see the bloodthirst in the Harris-Walz ticket just based on their record, not even just based on their rhetoric. And there is such a huge contrast between them and Trump. Even if I want Trump to be more personally pro-life, I know the direction their policies will go.
And you don't know, well, actually you do, if you're smart enough to figure it out, but they will not tell you, she will not tell you anything. She'll say, we will obey the law. Well,
right.
Which law? The one that you are going to pass through the administrative state, or the actual laws on the book from Congress?
Right.
She chooses not to take a stance on anything. And then they use this state media, which is an absolute propaganda machine all throughout the West, to just take you into a place to where you used to, not so much anymore, question, it must just be me. Is it just me?
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing these things, and that's not what I just saw. But now it has become so obvious. We're in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. People will endure these usurpations for as long as they're tolerable.
Yeah.
But at some point, they'll say, I can't live like this anymore. And we're almost at that point.
Last sponsor for the day is Patriot Mobile. Americans are so tired of giving our money to companies that hate us and support causes that are opposed to what we believe in. You don't want to have to worry about that when it comes to your cell provider. So go ahead and switch to Patriot Mobile. You get access to all of the coverage that you need, but you don't have to worry about funding the left because they are on our side. Plus, they back their service with the coverage guarantee. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team will find the best plan for your needs. You can keep your number, you can keep your phone, or you can upgrade. Go to patriotmobile.com/Allie. Right now, you get a free month when you use my code Allie. That's patriotmobile.com/Allie. Propaganda wars, how the global elite control what you see, think, and feel. How in the world can the global elite, according to the title of your book, control how we feel?
This is something that I've been looking at since the 1990s. I read an article about the loss of free will, and I thought, how does that work?
Yeah.
How can you not have free will unless it's totalitarian? You do that through algorithms. You do that through AI. When AI knows more about you than you know about you, when it has an agenda to either sell you something or to get you to do something, it can, in an ephemeral way where there's no record of it, okay, it can, by what it places in front of you, by what it prompts you to read, to see, to think, it's pushing you subtly in a direction. And we know that Google can do this just by the rankings of what you are seeing when you go search for something, YouTube or Google, you search, and the thing you're actually looking for may be on page 3. Do you make it to page 3? No, all of a sudden you're convinced, oh, nobody's asking this question or nobody believes that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're entering a time now with AI and with this behemoth propaganda machine of mainstream media, social media, and the governments that you will no longer be able to tell, did I choose that or did somebody choose that for me? Is that really my opinion? You will not have free will because you don't know how you came to that conclusion because others are putting these things into you. Right now, you could say, if I was at Google and I was nefarious, I could say, I need 25 people in Texas that are on medication, that maybe are a little bit unstable, schizophrenic maybe, have a handgun, have a rifle, are good at shooting, that hate Donald Trump. They think he's Hitler. Give me the names of all of those people. I could have those names to you if I'm Google within a minute. Now I could say, design an algorithm for each of these individuals, not a blanket, just personally for these individuals. I need them to try to kill the president in the next 25 days.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Yep.
It can be done. That's new.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're not even really hiding that. Like you said, Kamala Harris literally just came out and said he wants to be like Hitler. So some vigilante is going to think that he's going to make history by killing the next Hitler.
Right. And isn't that logical to everyone? I don't know when you were growing up, but one of the stupid things that you would always say when you were growing up, you'd play games and you'd be talking and somebody would say, okay, if you could go back in time and kill baby Hitler, would you kill baby Hitler? Okay. And the thing was, of course you would say yes, because it's Hitler. Well, I don't know. Will he grow into Hitler? Is that an absolute?
Yeah.
That's the kind of things people thought. You're willing to go back and kill baby Hitler, or at least talk about that. This is what they believe is actually Hitler here in the flesh and blood, about to take over the country.
Yep.
What makes you think people won't try to kill him?
Mm-hmm. So how do we push back against these propaganda wars? It's a behemoth.
So I'm actually, one of the reasons I wrote the book is because I wanted, this is the first book that I feel like the answers to the problem are the real point of the book. Usually I warn. There's less warning and more solution in this book.
Yeah.
Because if things don't go well, we will lose our ability to speak. You, me, everybody else will lose their ability to speak, I think, within a year. So we have to teach people how to think independently and how to know how to spot lies, how to judge. I'm asked this question all the time. I bet you are too. Who do you trust?
Yeah.
You know, how do I know what story is true or not?
Yep.
There's a formula that I have used now over the last 20 years, and we've really kind of refined it. And I share it for the first time in this book. One other thing, you can avoid things if you have warning. And one of the warnings that I would suggest, there's 4 billion people in the West that are voting this year. That's the most in all of human history. And so we've seen other elections. In the last 2 days of several elections now around the world, a deep fake has been introduced. Where
so scary.
Yeah, where it looks and sounds like the person you want to vote for just said something like, I want the loyalty of Hitler.
Yeah.
Okay. And it happens within 2 days, whether it's against Kamala Harris or for Kamala Harris, against Trump or for Trump. In the last 2 days, if a video comes out that is too good to be true, it won't be true.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't react. It could cause massive instability and war. So be very careful of a deep fake on the last 2 days, 3 days of this election before the vote.
And this is so important because you also lay out how people can distinguish the truth from a lie.
Yes.
What are the red flags? What are the signs of that? Including when it comes to AI and deep fakes, because we're just ahead of ourselves. Like, the technology is outpacing our ability to understand it, especially legislators' ability to understand it.
Yeah. Even the scientists, they don't know how it even works. We made a machine to teach a machine to learn.
Yeah.
It did. It's learning way faster than we thought, and it's learning much more, and it's teaching itself. We don't know how it works. That's not necessarily a good thing.
No.
God knows how we work, He created us. He knows exactly how we work. We don't know how our Frankenstein monster that we've just created even works.
It's not too different than the Tower of Babel. Okay, propaganda wars, how the global elite control what you see, think, and feel. You've got to get this if you don't want to find yourself waking up one morning and thinking, wait, is 2 + 2 really 5? You want to avoid that not only for yourself, but for your kids and for your grandkids.
We are really at a time. People are going to read about what happens right now for hundreds of years. Will you stand? Will you look at the things that are uncomfortable, ugly, you don't want to do? I choose life, not death, life.
Thank you so much, Glenn. You give us such good perspective. Propaganda wars, everyone, go out, order it. You need this book. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Allie.